Before we get into today's interview, we would like to give a shout out to our Patreons, Irene, Bev, and Michael. If you haven't heard of Patreon before, it is a great way to support us and keep us running and improving. You pick a membership tier that suits you and your budget per month, and in return for supporting us, we'll give you behind-the-scenes content and free stuff. You don't have to give much either. You can be a part of our Patreons for as little as $4 a month. Just visit patreon.com/Rave It Up. You can even donate through PayPal if you don't trust other sites. You can do so just through our email, raveituptv@gmail.com. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. We appreciate anything you can do to support us. Now, let's get into this interview. Hey guys, it's Lauren Yates from Rave It Up here, and I'm privileged to be with personal trainer, TV personality, and author, Commando Steve. Hi Steve, how are you going today?
Fantastic, Lauren, yourself?
Yes, I'm fantastic. It feels good to be back to in-person interviews instead of Zoom. It's like old school now. I haven't done one, I think, since May, so long time now, thanks to COVID.
Yeah, I know the same. It's, being a trainer and the like, and doing a lot of stuff online, but now we're kind of back outdoors and you can run PT and do all that stuff face-to-face. It's just that
so
human
connection,
isn't it? Yeah, that vibe, that energy, where technology's great, but there's a lot that's missed.
Oh, definitely. Like, I'm a dance instructor as well, and that was so hard during COVID because the music would just not line up with the other person as well.
Yeah, gotcha.
Some things you can't get across on video. So I'm so glad you're here today.
That's all right.
It's great to be neighbours. What a small world, right?
Yeah.
Now, since this is your first time on the show, we'd actually love to start from the beginning, if that's okay, to get a good idea of how you made it to where you are today. Is it true that you initially wanted to be a builder? That's very different. How come you didn't go down that path?
Well, it was probably one of the only subjects at school that I was any good at that point in time, and I enjoyed that creative side, getting into things and making things, and I just thought that would be kind of a natural fit to adulthood. So when I left school, I was looking for an apprenticeship, and they were pretty hard to get in the early 90s. And then a mate of my dad's suggested going to the army and doing my trade through the military or the army as such. So I joined up with the best intentions to do that, and then I found myself going to the School of Infantry and kind of going along that path.
Yeah.
You're young, you're impressionable. You kind of, for me, with the military, or I guess like anybody else, it's kind of sink or swim. And you're amongst these people that have been there for a period of time, so the directive staff, and they have their opinions on things.
Yeah.
And when you're young, you kind of listen to what it is that they say. And some of the things that were thrown around a lot was there's no point being in the army unless you go to infantry. You can do every other job in Civvy Street. So if you want to do those, go back to Civvy Street. And I was kind of that mindset. So I kind of bought into that, and I thought, it's one of the hardest jobs you can do in the army. I kind of got something to prove. And before I knew it, I was walking lots of long distances and digging big holes in the ground. Yeah, so
Bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but kind of construction, but in another manner.
Different way.
Yeah.
It seems like the whole universe had a different plan for you. Like, no, builder, nudge you in this direction.
Yeah, I know.
So, have you always had a love for health and fitness, or did that kind of come later on in life for you?
No, it's always been there. In my younger years, being very active, hyperactive, always out and about on the push bike, running around with the mates, in the park, just never at home. It was always, the parents kind of looking for us or calling out that it's kind of time to come inside and have dinner, whereas nowadays it's kind of completely the opposite for kids. Trying to get them outside of their house is a task. But school sports, athletics, all that type of stuff I was into. And I guess my relationship with exercise deepened as I went into my teens. And it was, I really enjoyed it as such. But also it was a near dear friend to me in we all go through our struggles, and as you're kind of figuring yourself out and your identity and where you fit amongst your peers and the like, for me, exercise was a best friend, and it was something that I could always come back to, and it didn't judge me in any way, and it was kind of this tussle on a daily basis as to my level of commitment and discipline to kind of get my backside out of bed, as a youngster, and do what I deemed was necessary. And I guess that's kind of set me up for life and where I am today. It's, through those hardships, through those struggles, and kind of rising to the occasion, kind of winning that day mentality. And that just grew over the years. So going into the military, everything that was required of me, of a soldier, the operating procedures in place, kind of the mission. This is what you got to do, and this is what you need to do to be able to support that or fulfill that role. And it just kind of grew from there. And then from the military, in leaving or making that conscious decision to leave, I was like, well, I enjoy it, and I have I guess there was a passion for it as such. And I thought, what better job than being able to wear shorts and a shirt or a singlet and kind of tell people what to do and help them to shape their lives in a manner that was more fitting and fulfilling as such.
Well, it's great you could make a job and a career out of it, because a lot of people love working out but not really want to take that next step to help other people. So really take my hat off to you.
I guess I don't know, like I never really thought of it, and I guess I was quite moving out of the military and into that space. I really didn't think of it so much as the service and the helping other people. It was more about the sharing and the things through my own experiences that I had learned and helping to impart that knowledge. And pretty soon after getting out of the military, I found myself on The Biggest Loser, which was quite an eye-opener, but at the same time, an accelerated learning curve as such.
Yeah. Had you been around cameras before Biggest Loser? Or
No.
was that was something to get used to?
Yeah, no, it was definitely something to get used to. I think it took quite a few years to get used to. There was elements of it, aspects where it wasn't too bad, but a lot of the time it was very daunting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. A lot of people just find it daunting being in front of this camera.
Yeah, I know. It's and I think over the years you learn to just relax into it and be yourself, and people see you. Well, I guess everyone's got their own take on reality and their perceptions around things, and their judgments and whether they're aware of them or not. But at the end of the day, you can only expect a person to be themselves.
Okay.
And that's something that I've learnt for myself, because again, doing the things that I've done in life, and then through The Biggest Loser, playing this role as such, there's this character, and then there's me.
Yes.
And where the lines are blurred, but at the same time, where are those lines? And when am I in character? When am I Steve? And there's very much those character traits and that are both of us, and but more so than not, in the everyday sense, I'm me, and not forgetting that, and just being okay with that is was probably my biggest saving grace, really, because you, like anything in life, you can wear that identity very heavy, because you feel that you need to uphold this perception because people expect that of you. And for a long time, that's what I did. And there's a whole host of different things, and there's been a lot of reflection over the years on what was and how I could maybe mold that, change that, grow from that. And I think that's all you can ask anybody. Yeah.
Well, I remember that persona so well too.
Well, I get reminded all the time by
you were
people.
the person everyone was scared of, like dark sunnies, not
right.
smiling at all. Look at you now, smile, guys. Look,
Always smile.
Very different from what we remember you as. So I'm glad that your Steve was still under there somewhere. Yeah. So how long do you think it was between leaving the army to when you actually started this whole personal training journey? Was there a good amount of time there? Was it kind of hard to adjust to everyday life again?
Well, everyday life, kind of answering that first, was I didn't know that in the sense of, as an adult as such. I joined the army kind of going at the cusp of, or the start of my adulthood. So for the better part of the next decade, up and towards 30, I was indoctrinated. I was in the military. So I had an understanding to a degree of, the civilian outside everyday life, but more so the military life. And, when I left the military, everything was anew as such. And there was a lot of apprehension. There was a lot of fear is probably the best way to put it, of, am I going to be able to do this? And, you talk to anyone that's been, in the services and the like, they carry that same fear. And much the same in the everyday sense, when you spend such a long period of time doing something, transitioning into something else, that transition can, manifest a lot of, not manifest, but a lot of stuff can come up for you. And working your way through that is a challenge, but also it can bring you a lot of joy and happiness as well in just dealing with it and working through that process, and what is it that you learn from those processes, because that's where the stuff is. That's the ingredients to anything. I guess it's like cooking or doing something like that. You have the end result, but the end result is only a byproduct of the ingredients and what goes into it. And that's what makes all of us who we are. And we all have a story and something to share, I guess, in this modern era with technology and all these different platforms. So many more people can become well known, and some more than others. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, we're human.
Yeah.
And there's human traits that we all kind of share in and burden us and the like at the same time, and that should be the stuff that brings us together.
But, love that.
Yeah,
that's so deep. We've learned so much already.
Don't worry, I get teased all the time. Put the bell helmet on. Make sure you're hooked up to the air, because we're going deep with Steve, Scuba Steve.
Hey, I like that. Let's just do a segment with Steve, just deep and meaningful conversations. The stuff that should be talked about. There is still so much that comes out of the army too, like the discipline aspect. Like my partner was in the army too, and he still has that very big discipline in him from what he got from the army.
And even to this day, it can create a lot of agitation in a relationship, especially when someone's a little more one way, and they can be very particular about things. And it's, I guess you could use the word softened as I've gotten older, because you realise that reality isn't just one way, and not everybody sees reality the same way that you do, and children and all those other things. And it's just allowing others to have space to figure things out. Sometimes it's on point, and other times it's messy as hell. And we all can be quick to judge the messiness. And but there's so much to learn from that, rather than the judgment, just observe. And it's through that observation that you don't have those blinkers on, and you tend to see so much more, because you don't need to push against it, you don't need to resist it, or you don't need to particularly interact. You just sit back and observe and learn. That's exactly right. And a lot of the time learn things that maybe that applies to me. Maybe I need to be a bit more not that way or like that, and it's balancing that out.
Exactly. It's not don't be so quick to judge, because you could also have some stuff that you need to work through too.
Oh, and I realise that a lot of the time. It's my head.
I think it's a human thing, isn't it?
Yeah. But I guess a lot of us, You just mentioned discipline. You know, I get so into this stuff, but it's
I love it.
goes
I love his
what
passion.
goes into discipline, and you know, there's the accountability and there's responsibility, and there's all those other things, and being accountable and responsible for yourself and your actions, and you know, your own thoughts, and all of it is it's very challenging because. You know, a lot of the time we'd rather pass the buck, and
Especially in
you
this
know,
day and
make
age.
it somebody else's thing to deal with, and you know, the more that you can just go into things with your eyes open. I remember, you know, when we were taught to parachute, and you go through all the land-based drills, and then you come to your first jump, and you know, part of the process of jumping out with a static line is you count to 3,000. Yeah. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Look up. You know, yep, there's a canopy there. I don't need to deploy my reserve. But when you first jump out of the plane, for me, I don't know about the other guys, I was like, you know, you're like stiff as a board. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, and you look up. And it's like,
Oh, thank God.
yeah. And then over time, you start jumping out with your eyes open. It's like, wow, man, this is so cool. You're like, you exit this rush and this. Oh, there's just so many different things going on, and you feel the pull of the static line as it pulls the chute out of the rigging on the back, and you know, you kind of fall into it because you've got this full body harness on, and you know it's there. Whereas those first times, everything just happens so quickly, and that's why there's the count, so that you've got something to base yourself in, although you're dangling around in the air, and a process so that you know you stay alive more so than anything, and you can get to your destination.
And later on, when you know what you're doing, you can enjoy the view.
And that's exactly right. And isn't that life?
Yes.
It's all about, you know, there's some messy stuff, and there's just the grit and the suffering and the pain, but you're doing things with your eyes open and realizing that doesn't have to whitewash everything. You know, there's so much more to it, and you can enjoy it. Yeah, gosh, we've gone
I love
this
that.
place real quick, haven't we?
That's going to be like my snippet of promoting the interview. Just how deep we just got. I love it. And I do love the name, the Commando, as well. It's very unique. It stands out. I wanted to know how you came up with that, because the 2nd Commando Regiment in the Army didn't actually form till 2009, which is after you left. And then I was like doing a bit of research. I was like, oh, there's a Commando movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 80s. Where did you come up with the idea for this name?
Well, the unit and the history behind it like stems way back. Like even before, I guess, maybe in other countries they were using the name Commando, but in Australia they had Z-Force and other, I guess, names for units that were kind of, to a degree, misfits that were brought from different services together to do like missions that they weren't sure could be accomplished. And they get, you know, people who were kind of living on the cusp, you know, willing to kind of venture into the unknown and you know, for the purpose or the mission of in war to try and change the change courses essentially, or to try and stop, you know, for example, you know, the things that some of the commandos of Z-Force did up in Singapore Harbour, and then in Timor as well, and then you know, SAS, you know, came about, and here in Australia they had 2 commando reserve units, one in Melbourne and one in Sydney. And then in 1996, after they brought the 4th Battalion down from Townsville, they went under a role change to a commando unit, but it was called 4RAR Commando at that point in time. So, and it was a bit a foot in either camp. You know, one foot's in the Royal Australian Regiment, which is, you know, infantry, and then the other foot in the Special Forces side of things. And the intention was to transition into the Special Forces, but there was a lot of hang-ups with tradition and you know, where are we as such, and that's why, you know, 2009 it was definitive. But up until that point in time, yeah, it was kind of 4RAR Commando, and that's the time when I was in that unit. And in leaving and going on The Biggest Loser,
you needed a bit of a stage name, didn't you?
That came from production. So the executive producers, and one particularly from things that he was doing in America and what he was seeing, he felt that there was, on The Biggest Loser, a role for someone with a character, because you obviously had Shannon and Michelle. Well, the Americans, Bob and Gillian first, and then Shannon and Michelle kind of went through or under their tutelage, came up as the lead trainers.
Yeah.
And I was kind of this enigma,
That
like
came
the
in
Stig.
later.
Yeah, well, like was the same season that Shannon and Michelle did, but no one knew that I existed except for two people. And I was training Chris and Kimberly on the side, and then they were injected like halfway to 3/4 of the way into the show, and Chris actually went on to win. But the name, kind of from the unit that I was in, I was kind of, the producers were like, well, if you get this role, what name do you want to go by? And I don't actually remember any particular conversation. I just think from the unit I'd been in, this long story I just told you.
Hey, I like long stories.
that it was fitting, and the Commando kind of encapsulated, especially in people's minds, much like the Stig.
Yeah.
This person, but no one really knew who that person was. They were just kind of good at what they did, and for me, it was kind of sunglasses on, looking probably more menacing than saying anything. Yeah, and kind of pointing the finger, and that motto, no excuses. But over the years, I recognised that, for people to kind of fall in love with you and like your role and your character, and to be on television on a more regular basis, you couldn't be so one-dimensional. And that was a progression with time. And then, as they asked me to come on in a more full-time capacity alongside the other trainers, the sunglasses came off, I got to smile, I got to interact. Although in the everyday sense, I was always doing that. They just didn't, the way in which they edited and they kind of told the story on television was void of all of that.
Movie magic.
Yeah. And, anyone that's been behind the camera knows, what goes into it. And there's a lot of footage and the like that gets discarded to tell a story. But for me, with all of that, the hardest thing was always the interviews. I really struggled. I used to find it very hard to relax. I guess I could get quite anxious about things.
Because you couldn't just be like this.
Well, not so much that. I probably could have been. I don't know. Maybe I was just regimented. I think maybe from the military, we never really spoke much about what we did. We kind of showcased through our actions, and that was the expectation. Whereas to kind of narrate things, it's like, come on, man, I'm not reading a kid's book. It's like, like I'm not trying to conjure up this idea. Like, let's go out and live it, and because that was what was required, and to kind of to shed that skin, takes some time. It's really hard to just kind of I keep using the word transition, but change that identity as such, and all the other little character traits that come with it. Because to this day, there's a hangover for me from the military in my younger years with the discipline, the way I can be, and we all know it. Even for children, a lot of how they are as adults, or how we are as adults, is reflected by our upbringing and the environment, and the people that we're around, and the lessons that we learn. Yeah.
How did you find it coming out of the show now? Because you're obviously going by Commando Steve now, so you're putting your name in there, but also living in a suburban area, a bit more everyday life. Has it been really helpful to put Biggest Loser on a bit of promotional advertisements and things for your own business, or is it a bit of a challenge to kind of put Biggest Loser aside and go, hey, I'm Steve?
Yeah, no, I've never. Yeah, way back, anything that I did, that we did in a business sense, we were smart enough to realise that for people to feel connected, a name kind of needed to go with it. And that's where the Commando and Steve kind of came together nicely. And what it was that I was doing outside of the show, because I was training people. I had clients. I had a gym. I had a CrossFit affiliate. I was, heavily involved in the CrossFit side of things, and it felt right to me. As for the Biggest Loser side of things, and kind of remove myself in any way, I've never intentionally tried to do that. I think it's like anything. People remember, things that were on television, and over the years when it's not there, it's kind of forgotten about to a degree until people are reminded of it. And as in the promotional or utilizing it, say in marketing or for my business, I've never really done that.
Deliberately done it.
Yeah, like it's again, I put it down, or what it is that I do or we do to the present moment, and what we can do at any given point in time. It's great to have I guess it's like, from the military, medals and all this other type of stuff, and rank and structure that comes with, positions. But, that was yesterday. Today's today, and what is it that we can do right now? And in the present moment, what it is that we can do right now is what's setting us up, for what's to come. And that's where I'm at, and thinking
right
about. It's, not just for myself, but, also within the family, and then that's inward looking, but outward looking, in the relationships and the rapport that you build with other people, because we live in such a consumable society nowadays that people are willing to spend their money, but giving them a reason or a point of difference to spend their money with you over others is, we're all kind of focused at that. We're trying to get or create enough noise so that you do fall within their bandwidth on a given day. They'll tune into what it is that you're doing. They'll listen to what it is that you say, which as you get older and the like, it can get a bit tough, because you don't want to play those games. And look at social media and the like, and I've got 4 kids. My eldest daughter's going on 23, and watching her and how she interacts with others, and then social media is a lot different to how I do it and my willingness to, but also I can get paid from it, and a lot of people can, and so it's kind of playing that game, and for me, it can be a little removed from like the everyday reality. You said just before, living in the suburbs and all that, but that's what it's always been for me. I think you just, depending on where you live, you kind of fit in with the furniture, so people kind of get used to you being a local or in that area.
Do people still recognize you?
Oh, people,
especially at the shops.
Yeah, people do. But again, it's more so when you go to different places. Like I was, for our little Christmas do on the weekend, we were up at the Bella Vista Hotel, and that's people have a few drinks in them and stuff like that, and then their inhibitions and the like kind of are lowered, so
yes.
they're more willing to maybe say something or come up to you, or just be cheeky, which I kind of know to expect in putting myself in an environment like that. But at the end of the day, people say, "Oh, but just don't do it." Well, there's others as well that you're interacting with and living life with, that you can't always not be there. Because what fun's
just
that?
To avoid it.
Just to avoid knowing that people are going to potentially say something. So for me, then thinking, wow, look at all these, like these really famous actors and musicians and the like. It's a no wonder they live in big houses with big walls and drive around with dark windows on their cars, because they'd never get left alone. And everyone's always wanting, not something from them, but they're intrigued, as to what makes them tick, But if you sat down with any one of them, they're as much a human being as anybody else.
Yes.
Yeah, and
it's just the whole, I guess, magic of TV that I've always found interesting, because even I just consider you an everyday guy. Like, personal trainer, like, there's heaps of personal trainers out there. But the very fact that you've been on TV, you know, even look at people that say are on something like The Voice. They might not even win it, but they come out of it and go, oh, my God, you've been on TV. Like, you're so cool. And then they have this some sort of stardom. Like, I remember, like, one of the first guests I had on the radio show was Lee Western from The Biggest Loser. And people were like, oh, my God, it's Lee. He's an everyday guy who was just losing weight on a TV show. It's just, it's funny to get your head around.
I know. But, you know, the other mediums now with, you know, TikTok and Snapchat and YouTube.
Too many to go on.
Yeah, but there's... some people definitely have, or a lot of people who kind of end up in that pinnacle at a particular, I guess, in what do you say, industries or and the like, they've got some spark, they've got something that differentiates them. It's like elite athletes. You know, maybe it's the work they put in. It's not always the raw talent that they have, but it's that work ethic. And, you know, there's a lot of keynotes, there's a lot of people who get up on stages and talk and become quite well known in business circles and the like. And a lot of those messages really come back to the small things, the simple things, the discipline, like, you know, just forging your way. You might be tired, you might be this, you might be that. Who gives a stuff? Like, you got to keep going. But it's not in such a way that it's so rigid. Like, there's got to be flexibility, the ability to kind of mold and adapt and move with things, and, you know, overcome those fears of failing as such, you know. But what is failure really? It's just a learning experience. At the end of the day, you know, you're still breathing, you're still you. You know, what are the next steps, you know, in place? And for what I do, that's very much what you're dealing with in the everyday sense with people too. You know, from The Biggest Loser, you know, and you're helping those that you know, and are in a position where it can be quite dire straits. They definitely need to lose that weight. They need to, you know, get their head on track and you know, put in place, like the jumping out of the plane, the 1, 2, 3, have some structure and routine so that they can cope and deal with the everyday sense. To clients who, you know, one day they kill it in a training session, the next day they getting there was a struggle, because their head's getting the better of them, or they didn't sleep because of the kids, or job stressing them out. You know, who knows? But being open and considerate and inclusive enough to be able to observe and recognise these things means that that people feel like they belong and they feel safe. And when people feel safe and connected, mate, they will do amazing things. Yeah, and that's what I learned from The Biggest Loser, or from the military and The Biggest Loser too. You can point the finger, as the Commando did, and kind of get in their face and yell and not scream as such, but
sort of, yeah.
It was kind of that. It was kind of tick the box and necessity. You must do this. No, but
you have to point your finger at least once per episode.
Yeah, that's right. So they've got it.
Yeah.
But in the conversations with my team, it was like, you know, outside of being on camera, they knew that was kind of what was expected as well. So, you know, off camera we'd have conversations, we'd sit around, we'd talk about nutrition, we'd talk about this, you know, what about this, what about that, you know, and the effort that was required. It wasn't always in the training session, it was me. It was like, when you get up in the morning, or you got to get your backside out of bed in the morning, you need to get on that treadmill or that bike or whatever it might be and get however many Ks or burn however many, whatever it might have been. And then you need to do the same thing at the end of the day. They had a hard job, you know, before and after, plus then the day and the filming schedule, you know, doing training sessions on camera, being interviewed about it, interviewed about making a bowl of whatever for breakfast, like, because it needed to be narrated. And they were always worn out. And to be left alone to train, they would have killed for that. It's
yeah, go away, cameras.
Yeah,
I just
know. Because I'm on a show where I need to lose weight, you know, and I'm too busy sitting in a chair being interviewed. Like, it's not helping me. But
it's a side we don't even think about as people watching it on TV.
That's exactly right. And that's why Chris and Kimberly did so well in that first show, because we were removed. We had the opportunity, or they had the opportunity, to train 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, pretty much, without the interference of cameras and too many interviews and the like. So, yeah, they got fit real quick. But
Thank you for giving us a little behind the scenes
yeah,
look
like
for
it's
that.
and you're not so aware of it at that given point in time. It's only until you go, that's probably a good reason why they are where they are. You know, you get into their heads, you make them do, things that are tough, and I guess that's probably another differentiator from the role that I played, but more what the capability of that role was enhanced from what I'd learnt and things that I'd been exposed to in the military. You know, a lot of the stores carries, the odd equipment, being out in the parks, not being too worried about getting wet, muddy, sandy, in the rain, because the visual effects of all of that on television are like they're the polarity to this pristine, nice floor. You got a roof over your head. You got the fans going. Oh yeah, it's all
It's
nice.
the money shot, all the mud and everything.
I know, right? And people they kind of that's what they want to see.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, and they kind of want to do it, but when it comes to it,
nah. Well, if anybody does want to be trained by Steve, they can go to commandosteve.com, right? You even have Commando Kids. That's very interesting. What does that involve?
Well, I guess it's a spin on
Just
everything
PE
that
at
we.
school?
Yeah, well, at one stage it was kind of approaching that and kind of looking at what what was required to kind of get that that type of training in schools. Well, not that type of training, but just more around encouraging kids to be active. And again, off the character and the role, and then one of my daughters doing some stuff with me when I was working with Garmin a few years ago. We kind of saw the fit. It was clear. It was obvious. But past few years, there's been a lot of stay at home imposed upon us all, and that ability to kind of come together in groups and the like is removed, so it kind of put the brakes on things. But we've run Commando Kids camps through school holidays and the like. It's more just that intensive get together and teach them fundamentals and movement patterns and how to move better, because you train adults and you think, and then you train kids and you see how well they move, and it's like, well, if these adults had been shown this stuff when they were kids, they'd be in a much better place. So why not
Start them young.
Start them young.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the
Where it all
whole
began.
premise behind it, and have some fun with it too, because kids kind of love that. They love a character, they love Marvel and all those other things. So
Like
I kind
Commando
of slot it in
Steve,
there
the
nicely.
superhero.
I know, right? A bit like the Punisher or something. Yeah.
Get the water pistol out.
yeah.
And how did you find the whole lockdown, especially mental health wise? Because as you said, you weren't able to do the whole groups in person, and I'm sure we can agree mental health is as important as physical health as well.
How
did you cope?
Physical health, really only is what it is because people are aware of their mental state, because those that really get bogged down and by their mental well-being find that there's a lot of procrastination, there's an inability to be physical as such, to move, to be a shapeshifter. That's the beautiful thing of being human, is we have this wonderful mind that can be very creative and come up with ideas and concepts, but it's taking those ideas and concepts and turning them into a reality, in this world that we live in. And we all have the opportunity to do those things, no matter how small. But unfortunately, people do. They get hung up by not like depression and anxiety and certain stresses, and then it manifests itself in a physical form, with health complications and the like, and it becomes multi-layered, and to kind of work your way through that can take a lot of time. But lockdown, for myself and the like, it struggles like anybody else. But at the same time, I quite enjoyed it.
You're like, finally, time off.
I only had to open the door and turn the TV and computer on and run Zoom sessions from in here. Whereas, loading the car and and making sure you have enough equipment for the clients, and making whereas Zoom, you could have 100, you could have 200, you could have 300,000 people.
And you could literally do whatever you wanted all the way up to it instead of travel time and things like that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
So
I found that too.
It was to a degree a bit of a blessing in disguise, but at the same time, what was removed was that ability to interact with your friends and loved ones as well who didn't live with you. Even to this day, I haven't seen my family as such, my mum, dad, brothers, because they're all up in Queensland.
Oh no,
that's
sorry.
been and it's all right though, but it's and that's been about 2 years.
Whew.
But I think running a business that's very focused on service and being there for others, like they say, in helping others, you help yourself. And, just that observation of, people struggling and dealing with things, you reflect for yourself and kind of ask yourself that question and how you're doing, and for me, I like to be proactive, and if a muscle's tight, all right, well, I spend the time and I stretch it. If something's kind of not how I feel it should be, whether that's physically or mentally, well, what are some of the things that I can put in place or the practices that I can adopt to help me deal with it? Or it could be as simple as talking to your partner or talking to one of your kids, because damn, man, they can come up with some pretty wise statements from time to time, or
learn off each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, like isn't that everything that we've been talking about for years leading up to this whole COVID saga as such is resilience, and what makes us resilient. Humans are resilient by nature. Like we've lived on this earth for thousands of years. We've adapted, and that's and we've learnt to accept what presents itself, but it's through the connection and an idea or a concept, someone coming up with it and another expanding on it, and then we put things into practice. Oh, that didn't work too well. Well, let's try it slightly differently, or complete 180 and
trial and error.
But I think one big thing that is tripping us up as humans is comfort.
Yeah, getting too comfortable.
Yeah, and we
turning
seek,
into laziness.
We seek comfort. We're not even conscious that we are, and that's like back to what we were laughing about before with the training sessions and being outdoors and the like. Our business lately, because of COVID, essentially was outdoor training, because gyms were shut for a long period of time, yet we could still operate, and it was a bit of a no-brainer. But then trainers who are used to training in gyms found it quite difficult to maybe transition outdoors. How do I run a session outdoors? Outdoor areas and nature, even a big park, is very vacuous because you need to bring energy to that. It becomes about what you can provide. Whereas and there's this attachment too. So people, I train at this gym, I go to this, there's a threshold, there's this structure in people's minds, they associate. Whereas you say to someone, "Oh, where do you train?" Oh, I train in Caddy, and then people picture, "Oh, but that's where they play soccer." There's all these different. So, there's a lot of stuff going on for people. But what we do, we've got to deal with the elements. You're dealing with the environment. It's hot, it's cold, it's
raining,
wet and raining. It's all these different things.
Get the mud out.
Which means it's difficult for business, but at the same time, it creates obstacles for clients just to show up. They'll look at the weather app. It's going to rain. It might not even rain, and they don't show up because it's predicted to rain. You know what I mean? Or you change locations, they don't like that location, or it's too far. So there's the constant struggle.
No excuses.
But it encourages you to extend yourself, to look for a means and a way to deal with the challenge that presents itself, however big or small it might be, and it constantly keeps you uncomfortable. And look at some of the greatest athletes, soccer players in the world, basketball players. They came from absolutely nothing. They were kicking, not even a proper soccer ball around in the dirt in a developing country, to going on to be on the world stage as a superstar, and they all go back to their childhood. They all talk about how hungry they were for things, and those who can remember that and keep that in place, although they've got the world in their hands, they're pretty well-rounded people. And I think a lot of us need to just sit back sometimes, take stock of that, and just go, actually, be grateful for what you've already got. It's enough, and if anything else was to come, you're quite fortunate. But be okay with what's going on now, and get yourself uncomfortable. You've got to do it at least once a day.
Oh yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and that grounds you, keeps it real.
I love how
I remember that.
Write it down after the
I
interview.
I always forget.
I'll just give you
and
the snippet.
I say things, and then people they say Commando Steve or CS or whatever it is, and I thought, did I say that? I can't even remember.
I'll just give you a snippet of that.
Like, really?
That part of the interview for you.
or I've seen like other gyms and things around that I follow, and they put a quote up, and then they say Commando Steve, and I was like, wow, at what point did I say that? But I'll
take it. It sounds
great. Yeah.
Well, today I've loved it because it's been so deep and meaningful, and hopefully a lot of people can take some lessons out of today as well.
Oh, thank you.
Would you like to do a quick game?
Yeah, sure. Let's
2 minutes. Why not?
Yep.
Yeah? You don't have a client coming
No.
a second, do you? Okay. Well, we have a legendary game here on Rave It Up. It's called the 2-minute hot seat.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and it's pretty simple. It's just like the rest of the interview. It's just questions, but there is a timed limit on it. So
Gotcha.
I'm going to ask you various questions, and you just
Yeah.
have to pick your preference.
All right.
So it's like dogs or cats, sing or dancing, things like that.
Like A and B.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to answer as many questions in 2 minutes as possible.
Oh, wow.
And then when we finish, we'll see where you sit on the leaderboard up against everyone else that's played the game on the show.
Gotcha. Let's go.
So you're the 138th person to play this. It's funny, I had Michelle on the show and also
Yeah.
Tiffany, but I only just did the interview, so they didn't play it, unfortunately. But maybe if I have them on again, you can set the bar nice and high for them.
Okay.
All right, are you all ready? Let me get my stopwatch. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram.
iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Rap or rock?
Oh, rock.
Rock or pop?
Rock.
Pop or country?
Country.
Beach or mountains?
Both.
Beach or pool?
Both.
Skiing or snowboarding?
Snowboarding.
Comedy or action?
Action.
Blondes or brunettes?
I don't know. Brunettes.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Sunglasses or hat?
Hat.
SUV or convertible?
SUV.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
PlayStation or Wii?
PlayStation.
Singing or dancing?
What was that one?
Singing or dancing?
Singing.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Italian or Chinese food?
Italian.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Kim Kardashian or Scarlett Johansson?
Oh, the second one.
Johnny
Scarlett.
Depp or Will Smith?
Johnny Depp.
Mall or online shopping?
Mall.
Cinema or home movie?
Cinema.
Ice cream or gelato?
Ice cream.
Cake or cookies?
Cookies.
Cookies or cookie dough?
Cookies.
Family or friends?
Family.
Football or soccer?
Football.
Christmas or your birthday?
Birthday.
Night or day?
Day.
Bus or train?
Oh, train.
Straight or curly hair?
Straight.
Eye color blue or brown?
Blue.
Vampire or werewolf?
Werewolf.
Texting or calling?
Calling.
Sydney or Melbourne?
Sydney.
Friday or Saturday?
Saturday.
TV or movies?
Movies.
Starbucks or Glory Jeans?
Starbucks.
Snow or surf?
Surf.
Harry Potter or Twilight?
What was that one?
Harry Potter or Twilight?
Oh, God. Neither.
Family Guy or The Simpsons?
Simpsons.
McDonald's or Hungry Jack's?
McDonald's.
Red Rooster or KFC?
Red Rooster.
French fries or chips?
All of them.
Burger or hot dog?
Burger.
Pies or sausage rolls?
Pies.
Tomato sauce or barbecue sauce?
Tomato.
Guitar or drums?
Guitar.
Sneakers or thongs?
Sneakers.
And we're out of time. I realize those food questions are not the best for you.
Oh, I don't mind.
We're allowed our cheap
if you're
food.
talking preference, that's where you're going. I see that. Like,
Yes,
it's not
exactly.
that I, make it a habit of going to Macca's or.
Do you eat this every day?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what do you? Yeah.
What do you eat every day?
3 meals a day.
How many questions do you think you answered in that
I don't
time?
know. I reckon would have been 30.
Ooh, more than that.
Wow.
I know. It goes very quickly, doesn't it? Well, you have answered 51 questions,
Wow.
and you were sitting number 37 on the Rave It Up leaderboard.
Wow, people what's the most?
101 questions is the top one, but it was her second time playing, so she got an advantage. And I don't think she was giving her honest answers either. It was like, just quick as possible.
Yeah, right, I get you. Because two of them or three of them, I didn't hear you properly. I think what happens is you get hung
the
up.
Sound. Yep.
Well, not just the sound, but you're also thinking of what was just asked of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind
I've
of
played
person
it too, and I'm like, this is so hard.
This is kind of the person you are. Especially when you're trying to be honest about things.
Have you ever watched the TV show SWAT?
SWAT.
SWAT, yeah.
I think I've seen a little bit of it.
The technical advisor of that show, I've interviewed him. He was in the Navy, and you answered the same amount of questions as him. So there you go. It's like the Army and the Navy guys answering the same amount of questions, and that was over Zoom, so you guys did very well. Well, we are unfortunately getting to the end of the interview, Steve, but as a closing statement, and was probably the most important question, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 14-year-old self?
Know what you want, be committed. And if you don't, don't take on too many responsibilities. Don't be shackled as such. So it's, I guess, around the forming of your identity, knowing who you are, and until that point in time, don't burden yourself and take on too much, so that you can live life, so you can enjoy it. Yeah, and allow that process and those experiences to shape you so that you can make more informed decisions.
I love that.
Yeah, because we can get we can be quite wishy-washy about things, and we become uncomfortable about something, so we step into something else to try and distract us or deflect. Yeah, because that's too difficult to deal with. And I think I did, as much as there was a certain amount of commitment and discipline for me around certain things, there was other things that I was quite unsure of, and I became quite wishy-washy around. So you kind of just pack your bag and off you go. And it's kind of just left. And because you haven't maybe resolved it or seen it through, it only manifests itself and comes back up again, and then you have to deal with that lesson over and over, and it's like, hang on a second, like, here we go, here's that pattern. What
am I going to do differently this time?
Stop
it from coming back.
And I guess something that I've lived by, but be your own source of encouragement. Like, it's as much as we can rely, or we'd like to rely on other people, and there are other people in our corner and support us. Just be mindful of what you're willing to do and not to do, because we all seek acceptance, probably more so than taking our next breath. We want to feel validated. We want to fit in, and that's not always going to be. But you got to be happy and comfortable in your own skin and be your own source of encouragement, because it's your two legs that walk you. It's your heart that's beating. Use them.
Love that. Another quote today.
Yeah. Oh.
And good advice for all the young listeners too, not just the younger you. Yeah. So if our audience want to contact you, find out what you're up to in the future, where should we go follow you?
As you were saying, so the website, for those who still look at websites, commandosteve.com, then any of the social media platforms, it's Commando Steve.
Easy enough to find you. Just type him into Google.
And then, and we're kind of in the Hills area, Kellyville, Beaumont Hills. We're actually looking to open up an indoor space within the next month or two, so that we can deliver training regardless of rain, hail, or shine.
Yeah. Oh, keep me up to date with that.
For
Maybe
sure,
we
for
could
sure.
do another interview and talk about it.
Yeah.
Come in and have a check of it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. I know you're so busy. Like, it was hard to organise this, wasn't it?
I'm sorry. Yeah, it happens.
No, it's fine. But for everyone watching, as we mentioned, go to commandosteve.com. Maybe book in a session with Steve. Get totally get exhausted by the end of a training session. But for now, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Bye.